thing. Yeah, you measure T and my side.
But we saw those up in the corrections for the future. So like by the time I actually get this report to you, that seems a good number because we've gone through
How many offset doesn't make sense.
August.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gone through.
Okay. And because you're doing it late enough after the fact.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
All those corrections were made. It looks like you're.
and there was,
yes, my
Sorry.
council members are back. Thank you.
I don't particularly care for him myself.
Thank you for that.
You see my yes on yes too?
Yeah. Okay. We're ready.
Okay.
Okay, we resume our meeting. And down to mayor council matters. And the first is countywide assignment reports, and then after that, subcommittee reports, if any. So, who would like to go first?
I'll go. Yeah, sure.
Go for
So I had a couple of county-wide meetings. One was with the Heart board, and so the Heart board is we've hired Olive Grove consultants, and here's the packet that or the feasibility study that they're putting together. And so Heart is their mission is to raise funds for affordable housing, and they've put forth a very ambitious plan to raise $200 million. And they've been around for about 20 years, maybe 25 years, and they raised, I don't even think they've even raised $10 million. Maybe it's close to 12. And so here they have this ambitious plan of $200 million. But so they've hired this consultant, Olive Grove, and so far they've helped the board raise through grants $15,000. They're working on another one that's about $200,000. Their consulting fee is $75,000, and we took them on board because not only they have a great a great reputation, but they've also implementing a plan where their fees will be paid through helping Heart to raise money through grants. And so I think it's a great way to take on someone who says, yeah, we can do this, and we're going to help you raise enough money to pay for our fees. So yeah, I'm really excited about the work that these guys are proposing, and it'll really help cities in San Mateo County to have funding for affordable housing. And then I had a CMAQ meeting, and in that meeting, one of the presentations was in regards to applying sustainability standards and operations to not only cities but also to schools, mostly through doing solar. And there's some great opportunities for school districts to partner with the county to implement. And I couldn't find my packet because I really wanted to highlight some of the things that they're doing. But it's something that will be on our agenda for the 2x2, and because it would be great to get this money to help retrofit part of our buildings in the school district, and get money to put in solar panels. And a lot of these programs, if done correctly, and there's this special type of funding where you can basically do this work for free, or the amount of money that you save over the life of this loan that has zero interest will help pay for those improvements. So there's some pretty cool things out there.
Yeah, I think this is part of the state grant funding.
Yeah.
Is what it is. And,
Okay.
and from what I understand, all the schools in San Mateo County participated, including Brisbane, in the presentation for this. And it's supposed to be where all the schools have this money available. I think it was, God, I can't think of what the figure. Some obnoxious figure. I mean, it was
It's crazy
a
amount.
lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Like,
But you gotta
Hundreds
be
of millions.
but you gotta be shovel ready. You know,
Yeah.
you gotta have those plans in place.
right.
And so
Like anything else is
yes.
public.
No, for
Yeah.
sure. So, yeah, that was it.
Okay, thank you. Jerry?
I attended a library JPA meeting this morning, and they approved their interim, a updated budget, which not much changes. And then they also discussed the JPA organization and the donor funds, which is the excess funds that 3 of our cities in the JPA have, and how that they could change how the entire library system may be changing, as far as the agreement for those donors funds and how they are spread out through the community or given back to the donor communities. So that was the big discussion, and I don't think any decisions were made, but interesting how the San Mateo library system works and how it's funded through property tax by the cities and how it's implemented throughout the system.
Okay, thank you. CCAG clerk?
No,
Nothing?
that was, yeah, well, I didn't have a CCAG meeting. That was last month.
Mm-hmm.
That was October 9th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we already reported on that.
Right,
But that was, with PG&E.
right.
That was one of the things, too, was the funding, what Cliff was talking about, too,
Mm-hmm.
with the schools.
Okay. Any subcommittee reports that we haven't touched on already on the agenda and so forth?
Nope.
No. There is one thing I did want to mention. I was at the Council of Cities dinner
Mm-hmm.
in Millbrae, and so Carl Gardino, who is the president and CEO of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, was the guest speaker. And so after the presentation, we had a little chat. The number one concern of businesses in San Mateo County is affordable housing. So, when I was looking at this, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot I had, I was at that presentation. So, another thing that Carl does is that he's the race director of the Turkey Trot, which is the Silicon Valley Turkey Trot race, 5K, in Los Gatos, I think it is, or maybe Mountain View. Anyways, this race, they raised $1 million, over $1 million for these various these 4 nonprofits. One of which is the Harvest Food Bank. And so we talked and exchanged a couple emails, and so trying to arrange for him to come to Brisbane and be at our economic development subcommittee meeting, and looking at ways to, as we look at, the charrette, and looking at Crocker Park and Sierra Point, are there opportunities that we're just not aware of because we're in Northern California or Northern San Mateo County and Little Brisbane? Are there opportunities where perhaps we can get some recognition from folks that are part of this Silicon Valley Leadership Group?
Okay.
I worked there for 32 years. Trust me, some of the stuff that they got down there you don't want here.
No, well, exactly. But I think it's good to know that we do exist and that there is opportunity here in Brisbane.
Yeah.
Especially I think out at Sierra Point. Sure,
yeah.
people drive up and down 101 and they know that we exist, but I think it'd be good to to be able to bring some folks in that that understand funding and can make projects happen.
Yeah, it's kind of part of what we had realized, I think, in the hotel study, that the businesses that we want out there should be more of the corporate type headquarter businesses that would be able to anchor not only there but supplement another hotel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's good.
Move on to the Mayor's Diversity Award honoree, and I think, Clark, you attended that dinner?
No, I didn't.
You didn't?
I was planning on attending.
Oh.
Yeah, but what happened was I was up in Northern California and couldn't get back in time and didn't. So I'd called Sherry. I had some business to take care of up there. And I called her the day before. I said, Sherry, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it back in time, but I'm going to try my darndest. But, you know, if I don't wrap up before 12 o'clock, I'm not going to make it back. And I didn't finish till 3 o'clock, so.
Ooh.
It was at 6 o'clock, and that's a 3.5 hour drive. At that point in time, it's probably 4.5 hours. So we had already kind of pre-planned it. I don't know if you'd called Cliff, but yeah. But we got a hold of. I can't think of his name right now. Yeah. Jorge Jaramillo, yeah. So I was thinking that what we could do is maybe later on in a month is bring Greg, but also the local AYSO coaches and stuff here, and then recognize them here also.
So was he recognized at the dinner, or?
He was.
He was?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was, but I wasn't the presenter.
Okay, all right. Do we have anybody there? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
So do we want to say anything about the honoree, or? Because I don't, you know? Great.
No, I don't know him. I may know him by sight, but not by name.
Okay.
I haven't matched the name up to. I don't know if he's a Brisbane resident.
I don't know that either, but we have information from them. I mean, all I have is what they presented to us, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have that?
I do.
Okay.
But, you know, I think it'd be appropriate to bring him back.
It sounds like that's a better way to go. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll do that.
Yeah.
Okay, complete street safety committee applications. Sherry?
So as you probably recall, we set October 30th as a deadline for submitting applications to serve on the Complete Street Safety Committee. And I received two, one from Dolores Gomez, who you all know, and one from Christina Zane, I believe, if I'm reading that her handwriting correctly.
Mm-hmm.
We have, it's a committee that has up to 7 members on it. And we started off with 7 members. We now have 4 due to 3 resignations for personal reasons. So you could choose to appoint these 2 or set interviews, whatever you like.
Motion to appoint both of them.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Done.
Good.
Glad to see Dolores back on the committee.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and welcome to you know, Christina. I mean,
Right.
being in town for only 5 months,
Yeah.
get a new homeowner, and yeah, we're really wanting to get right in there and participate.
Jump right in.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Okay. Written communications. We have a letter from the Citizens Committee on the Baylands Draft EIR. And let's see. Since the chair of that committee is here, why don't we ask her to present?
Anja
Say your
Miller,
name was?
Chair of the Citizens Committee on the Baylands DIR, and due to the hour and everybody being pretty tired, I don't think I'll read the letter into the record. I assume it's going to be part of your record. Mm-hmm. And you know what the issue is, that you were kind enough to provide us consultant help, pay for it. And this really was something we did not expect, and we were already really rushing to try to finish by the deadline that we have on November 22nd. So we did meet with Mr. Rivas Plata, who gave us a sample of a his review of some comments. We had a section of 9 comments, and he had 9 review comments. And so we realized that we really, in order to use his advice, we really needed more time to consider all of his input, and then to make changes that we need to make in order to make this what you want and what we would like to do is a proper and effective presentation of analysis of the EIR as from a citizen point of view and factually supported. And not talking about the project but the EIR. So that's our request. We absolutely really need more time, and we were talking about, you know, really being able to have as much as we feel we need. We could use till March, but I do recognize, and some of us do recognize, and we have other members of the committee here. We have Greg Anderson, Vice Chair. We have Lori Liu, and we have Dave Gribon. He's still here, who is still working on one of the most important sections, which is traffic. And so we just hope that you can understand this need and to provide. I'm not even mentioning dates now, whatever you can give us after all this waiting. So, please.
Okay, thank you. I know, Michelle, you put your name, you'd like to speak to this, and maybe some of the others would like to as well. Okay.
Michelle Salmon, Brisbane resident. I am not speaking tonight on behalf of the Open Space and Ecology Committee because we did not have time to agendize this request for an extension. Even though when we originally asked for an extension, we asked for it to be to the end of January because we already knew it was going to take longer than we suspected with or without the help of Mr. Rivas, for which we're very grateful that you approved that. I brought this because I really had the best of intentions of reading part of it during the boring part of the meeting, but there really was no terribly boring part of the meeting except your reports. No, sorry. But
Thank you.
I've really listened a lot to everything that Lloyd Zola has said about program EIRs, project EIRs, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe I'm interpreting what he's saying as correctly. And what I hear is that the program EIR becomes the overarching document for which all the subsequent reviews at the project level fall under. If something is not covered in the program EIR, if it is certified, then you don't get to address it unless there is a significant change in conditions, at which point then you could, and there would be environmental review at the project level, but not at the level that is in the program EIR unless it's already been mentioned in the program EIR. It's complicated. But basically, if you didn't cover it in the program EIR when you do certify it, and then something comes up later, it has to meet significant threshold levels to be studied at the same level as if it was mentioned in the EIR. If it was mentioned in the EIR, you can ask for further study when you get to the project level. But if it wasn't mentioned, then I believe you have to meet some threshold of significance. And you can check with your own experts on that. But I've asked the question numerous times now and gotten the same interpretive answer. And you have your own expert right here that you can ask. But all that aside, you know that when you go to certify, you'll get to read these several thousand pages, and then you'll decide, the 4 of you, or hopefully by that time there'll be 5 of you, whether or not it's adequate. Because at some point, you will most likely have to certify an EIR for anything that happens out there, whether it's this EIR or some other EIR or something else we write. So the question is, would you rather do the work, or would you rather have your Citizens Committee do the work and your Open Space and Ecology Committee do the work, and the people of Brisbane who care very much do the work to the best of their ability, as thorough as possible, before you ever crack the book on it? That's really the question. And if the answer is yes, then you need to give us more time. And if the answer is no, have at it. It's all yours. And if anything's left out, we'll have to deal with it over the next 50 years, because that's how long this document and this project could take to build out. So I don't ask lightly, because I know people have been waiting a very long time to get it done. And believe me, I'd really like to be done with it. I'd like to throw it out the window. Because I'm really tired of reading it, and I haven't read it nearly as studiously as Barbara has and some of the other members of the committee, because I just haven't had the time or sometimes the stomach for it, because it's really a difficult document to read. I'll give you an example of how you get derailed when you're reading the document. The section we did last week was biological resources. And in paragraph 2, sentence 2, they talk about reconnaissance level field surveys. And I'm like, I hate that word. I hate that expression. And the next paragraph, it goes down to say, on March 2nd, 2007, June 20th, 2007, April 20th, 2011, and April 19th, 2013, reconnaissance level field surveys covering the entire project site were conducted by ESA biologists. The 2007 survey confirmed that site conditions in terms of biological resources remain consistent, with no appreciable changes in the distribution or condition of existing habitats between 2007 conditions and 2011, and also consistent with earlier site surveys described above. That is 4 days, 2 in 2007 and 2 in 2011, to survey all of the entire site for all biological aspects. I happen to remember 2007 pretty well, and 2011 pretty well. It's kind of a curse. So I looked up the rainfall numbers for those years. And in 2007, the average rainfall, this is the season 2007, 2008, ended up being 17.5 inches. And in 2011, 2012, it was 15.64 inches, which seems pretty much the same, right? For March and April in 2007, 2008, the total rainfall was 0.46 inches in March and April combined. That's less than half an inch. For 2011, 2012, the total rain for that same period, March and April, was 8.5 inches. So tell me the conditions on the ground were the same. I don't think so. So, it calls into question that the entire chapter, because they're basing it off of a field reconnaissance survey and a bunch of reports that they did and other people did before them. And so that's the kind of detail that you get kind of hung up in when you're going through this. And, they talk about mitigation measures for Icehouse Hill, but they don't talk about mitigation measures, or they're like, well, we're going to we're not going to do anything while the birds are nesting, and then we're going to cut down all the trees. Well, then where are the birds going to go? You don't talk about that, and that's a drop in the bucket compared to, hazards and hazardous materials, traffic, air quality, growth inducements. That's this week's chapter. I haven't finished reading yet. And so if you want us to do the kind of job that you would want, I think we need more time. I mean, it took them how long to produce this document? How long did we wait for it? Base year's 2010. We got it, June of 2013? So what's the hurry? It's up to you, though. I can hand it to you right now. I'm certainly developing arm muscles from carrying it around.
Hi, Dave Grimmel from Resident. So yeah, I'm working on the traffic report right now, and it's 150 pages, and it's basically mind-numbing, I think would be the best way to describe it. It's just so much information. I'm not saying this just to complain about it or anything, but it's just, I mean, I can only do a little bit before I just start canceling out. But more to the point, I think, with the additional information that we have with the consultant and his added insights, I know on the committee that I'm running and my comments from the previous committees I've served on, I'm going to have to go revisit them all and make sure that they're suiting the purpose, I guess. And my point being that I think it's in everyone's interest for us to take the time to do this right, so that the people who are having to read this and process it down the line aren't going through a bunch of information that's non-relevant, as well as our own time, but let's just get it out there and do it right once, as with everything, I think that's the best approach. So I'm seconding Anya's request for additional time on the report.
Okay.
Thanks.
Greg, do you want to talk? No? No. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Hi, I'm Greg Anderson again, and I still live at 349 San Bruno Avenue. I'm still the vice chair for the DEIR study. We started this approximately 102 days ago. We have 23 people on our list who put in a lot of time, and on this 102nd-ish day, approximately 10 of those are still extremely active in studying the sections of the DEIR that they signed up for, and the additional sections of the DEIR that they didn't sign up for. We have utilities and cumulative impacts for our next meeting, which I think will go pretty quickly. But after that, we still have traffic and circulations, hazard and hazardous materials, and biological resources, the weight of which was too ponderous to be analyzed in the time that we allotted for those chapters. So the amazing thing about this process is, even after spending around 102 days studying this huge document and reading through most of it, that we still have 10 people who are actively working on it. And the predominant opinion of those 10 people is that they need another 120 days to continue to do an adequate job. My personal opinion is that perhaps 120 days is too long, but certainly if we have to stop in 18-ish days, then our work will be somewhat incomplete. I don't think that the consultant is necessarily the most important aspect to the extension. His comments were very valuable, but I felt that they were similar to what the consultants who prepared the report will tell us, when we hand it in, as terms of applicability of comments and so on and so forth. So I am very concerned with Michelle's point that we should cover everything that needs to be covered, but as E.E. Cummings said, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter letter. Some of that time can be pared down after, some of that volume can be pared down after we turn in the report. So it is a difficult question to say. how much more time we need. I don't feel like a lot of work is going to be done with our current level of exhaustion in the holiday period. So I'd like to suggest that if we are extended, that we're extended at least 60 days, because I think that the benefit of a 30-day extension would be very slight. So if you have any questions about statistics or numbers or things we haven't done, I'm happy to answer them, but that's most of what I have to say.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Laurie.
Good evening, Lori Liu. I want to echo the words of everyone else who spoke. Being on the Citizens Committee has been a very arduous task, but an important one. And the way we've organized it, just to give you some idea of our process, is that we've divided ourselves into the different chapters, and people have signed up to be on those, I guess, subcommittees, you could call them. And we've been meeting or communicating by email and coming up with our comments and then presenting them to the group at our meetings. And as Greg mentioned, we still have several really key important topics to cover. And to date, I believe we have over 200 pages of comments on the topics that we've already completed. And now that we have this additional consultant time, that that he will be able to review our work and make sure that we're wording it in the most effective way to be able to receive comments back. I think that in order to really utilize that service, we need more time, because what we're going to do with his comments is then we're going to each subcommittee is going to take that back and go over his comments and review them and revise our comments based on them, and then decide that will be what the group decides, or maybe what the subcommittee will again present it to the entire group. So that whole process is going to take some time. It certainly can't be completed by November 22nd. So I believe that with the upcoming holidays, we would certainly need through at least the end of January to be able to utilize his comments and complete the sections that are still yet to be covered. Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, sure. Excuse me.
Motion to extend the meeting to 11:20.
11:20. Is there a second?
I need to make it longer than that, Clark. I would just do 11:30. Just so you have the time, just so we have to come back.
Because you wouldn't want to have to extend it again, which is exactly the comment I was going to make. So be generous if you're going to extend it. Do it through the Ides of March or whatever, because we don't want to come back to you in January and saying we still don't have enough time, which is exactly what happened this time. So be generous. If you're going to do it, be generous about it. And let us have the time that we really need to do it well, so that we don't have to come back and do this again, because we still found more to go through. Thank you.
Okay. So you want to stick with your original, or want to change it?
Yeah, I think. So if we'll go to 11:30 if you want.
Okay, that's your second.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We do have kind of a balancing act, and I think we're all very appreciative of the work that the citizens have done and are doing, and it's actually crucial to getting a product that's going to help us make really wise decisions on the Baylands. But there is another dimension called the whole litigation sphere, and I'd like our city attorney to address that other side of the pressure that the council is under, so people can understand that we're in kind of a pinch here.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll address it, although some items with respect to litigation, of course, are appropriate for closed session rather than open session. But in terms of the considerations that the council and the city have to look at, I did have a chance to speak with outside counsel Margaret Sohagi, who's the CEQA counsel who's been working with the city on this issue. And the issue that the council needs to look at, the other side of it, is that there are CEQA guidelines, and generally under the CEQA guidelines, there's the draft EIR that's issued, and then there is a 30 to 60 day comment period that can be extended for unusual circumstances. Excuse me. Without a doubt, the complexity, the length, the issues in this EIR, this draft EIR, provided unusual circumstances that justified the extension of the general maximum 60-day period to 120 days. That was extended on October the 8th for an additional 45 days, again based on the unusual circumstances that stem from the complexity of the length and the citizens group looking at the issues in the draft EIR. Under the CEQA guidelines, that extended the total time of review to 165 days, which is almost 3 times the standard provision for review. And then the issue that comes up when it goes that long is that there are several cases where there have been challenges made to the failure of a city to move an EIR forward to issue an environmental review decision within a reasonable period of time, because what the courts have said is that the applicant has the right to have the review finished and the decision made within a reasonable period of time after the application is submitted. There is no clear case law on this, and certainly the council, as I think I discussed at the last continuance, has the ability to continue the review period for a period of time based on unusual circumstances. The time period that the council is running up against is that, again, under the CEQA guidelines, generally the EIR is supposed to be certified within a year of when the draft EIR is issued. Now, clearly that's not going to happen here, and there's good cause for pushing it past the year. But what the council is faced with is balancing the very legitimate interests that the citizens have in extending the comment period, in dealing with the complexity of the issues, with the CEQA guidelines, the case law, and the potential challenge to both the EIR and the council's action and the city's actions if this is continued for what a court would determine to be an unreasonable time period past the issuance date of the draft EIR.
Sure.
So then once the draft EIR is done and the questions are answered, and then you get the EIR, how much time are you going to get to review it? Is that also going to be limited under CEQA law? Because you might want to think carefully about that too, because that's kind of contradictory to what you said, where you can wait to certify the EIR until you have your project ready. But I don't think that's going to be the case at all. So I'd really like to know, once the EIR is given to the council, how long are they going to have to certify it? How much time are they going to get to work through this several thousand page document and put their stamp of approval on it, whether we have a viable project or not? I mean, do they have to certify it? Can they say no? Well, then what happens? What kind of legal mess is that going to be if already you don't get to take the amount of time you need to do this first part? This is very different than what was said a couple months ago, and you said, we can take it, if we need more time, we can extend it. If we need more time, we can extend it. And now you're being told, no, you really can't. And so you're thinking that if we need more time, we don't have to certify the EIR until we're satisfied. Well, maybe that's not the case, is it? So I'd like to hear the opinion on that, too. So you can think about that. What kind of timeline do you really have here? And how much work are you guys going to have to do to certify this document once we get through this part of it? That's a big question, because I don't think you guys are ready to do that.
I'll give you a chance to answer, but let Tanya go first.
I just have one suggestion that you might pursue is the consultant that we met with did say that there have been cases where the time has been longer because of unusual circumstances, the review time. And I think you should find out, for instance, in the state of California, from a clearinghouse or somewhere, just how many cities have taken more than the 120 days. I think you need to know that. So, and if those cities then were sued, intimidated.
Do you want to go ahead? Sure.
I think you also need to keep in mind that, by giving us more time, it's not failing to move the project forward. It's actually going to help the council down the road because, we the citizens are going to be doing a lot of the work that, that'll help you, and you won't have to do as much work in the future. So, I think that more time now will actually benefit the council in the future. So, and I believe the city attorney said that there's no clear case law of any challenges that have been successful. So, it's of course a litigation risk, but it's about what's reasonable under the circumstances. And I think based on, the fact that it's a very complex project, and there's this new information, this consultant, this new service that we have, that is a very good factor that justifies more time.
Mr. City Attorney, you want to respond to some of those questions?
No. In terms of the question about how long the council has to certify, there's no set period that I'm aware of. Again, the general rule is that the review of the EIR is supposed to be completed within a year. That clearly is not possible given the complexity and the issues here. There would probably be the expectation that the council move expeditiously in reviewing the draft EIR and the comments and reaching a certification or rejection of the final EIR. But again, I can't give you a definite time period. But it would probably be, I think, in terms of a reasonable time period, somewhere between 3 to 4 months would be my best estimate.
Okay.
But David,
I'd like to ask some questions.
Okay.
What's the process of rejection? I mean, do you have to have findings and stuff like that if you go through it? If you either certify it or you don't certify it, but if you don't certify it, don't you have to have some findings on why you didn't, or what?
If you don't certify it, then it's generally because you find that it hasn't disclosed all the significant impacts and there's more work that needs to be done. So you would remand it back or request additional studies that would then come back to you, and then at some point you would need to make a decision in terms of whether you are going to certify or not certify the final EIR.
And so if you didn't certify it, you wouldn't need findings to do that?
If you did certify it?
If you did not.
If you did not. Yes, if you did not certify it, then you would need findings. You would basically have to find that the report continued to fail to disclose all of the significant environmental impacts from the project.
I see. But it's not a constant going back and forth and going back and forth. Oh, it didn't certify. Oh, you got to find this. You got to do that. At some point, there's a cutoff, or what?
No.
I guess.
At some point, generally, what's happening in cases is where it's gone back and forth and back and forth. Generally, the developers at one point will decide that they don't think they're going to get approval from the council, and at that point is generally when litigation ensues.
Okay. That's a question.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions, that I wanted to just kind of understand is just, that there are other opportunities to get more information, before we would certify the EIR, and that, if we weren't satisfied, we continue with the process of gathering more information to ensure ourselves that whatever mitigation efforts were needed for a particular part were satisfied.
That's correct. The processes are somewhat different. So there's now the draft EIR that has been issued, and the citizens groups are, of course, commenting on the draft EIR. Those comments will be given to the city's EIR consultant, who will review them. They will become part of the final EIR, and there will be written comments, written responses to each of those comments in the final EIR. Once the comment period ends, whether it's in a month or 60 days, that terminates the formal comment period on the draft EIR, but any additional comments can continue to be submitted. They would become a part of the record. They would be submitted to the Planning Commission and to the council for review and consideration. The difference would be that they would not be part of the final EIR, the record that would go with the final EIR, and there would not necessarily be written comments from the consultant to those additional comments, but they would be before the council, before the Planning Commission could be considered. And if in fact either the Planning Commission or council felt that any of those comments raised significant issues that had not been addressed, then the council would have the right to request additional information as a result of those comments.
Okay. And then, right now we have the developer's specific plan, we have city's alternative, we have the alternative energy plan before us. But, we've talked about how, eventually what might go before the voters as a plan could be completely different. So how does, so if we're kind of taking this information and we're creating perhaps a final plan, that then also could create opportunities to require more information as far as environmental impacts are concerned, correct?
If I understand your question, at some point the council will consider and will either approve, modify, or reject the current specific plan, and if it's rejected, then may develop a specific plan that approximates what the council and the community is willing to accept in terms of any potential use of the Baylands. If that specific plan is within what's been studied in the EIR, then you wouldn't have to go back and do a new EIR. If it was something that was different, if there were new environmental impacts, then it would require either a supplement or some additional study so that everything that's part of whatever plan the council approves does have full environmental review.
Okay. All right. And then the last thing, talking about precedent. And so we're in this stage of, right now we're at 165 days. Do you know of any projects where that amount of time has been given for a draft EIR and that there was potential litigation because of delay, or just it was beyond the kind of standard time frame? that is expected?
I think that there's two different questions with respect to the question of whether I'm aware of any extensions that have been more than 165 days. I am not.
Okay, yeah.
And in speaking to Margaret Sohagi, the outside CEQA consultant, she was not aware of any review periods that have gone beyond 165 days. However, we have not done, certainly I have not done an exhaustive search of everything in the state. So it certainly, it could be possible. Again, Ms. Sohagi has been practicing CEQA law for many, many years, and probably would be aware of anything, certainly that reached the level of litigation or that was a large Southern California project, and she was not aware of anything that exceeded that 165 days. The litigation that's ensued has generally not been based on the review period. It's been based either on processing after the review period, on failure to process, on other procedural issues that are involved in the CEQA review process. The general doctrine that's come out of those cases is that an applicant does have a right to have a review processed in a timely and reasonable manner consistent with the city's obligations to do a thorough environmental review. So there's been no litigation I'm aware of that has stemmed directly from an issue of extending a time period for review.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
If the EIR gets certified, can we still reject the project?
If the EIR... Yeah.
If it doesn't meet our general plan, it doesn't meet the community's expectations?
Yeah, I mean, you can't accept the project or can't approve the project without the EIR being certified. However, the approval of the project would not be mandated by the certification of the EIR. Generally, it's preferable to look at both the EIR and the project at the same time, so you're not certifying an EIR in a vacuum without the project coming forward, so you know exactly what it is that you're looking at. John, do you have a thought on?
That's normally the case. You typically might not want to certify the final EIR until you have a project that you're approving because, for example, if there are overriding findings, typically findings why you want to approve a project despite their significant unavoidable impacts are typically tied to a project. So it's unclear if you're going to certify an EIR and say, because you really don't know what the overriding findings are because you don't have if you don't have a project you want to approve at that particular moment. So normally they are tied together.
Yeah. But if I can follow up on that, so it would be unusual, I think, to certify the EIR and then reject the project. The more typical action, I think, would be to reject both the project and not certify the final EIR at the same time.
Yeah, I want to comment on that too. So
you were in there first.
I think I opened a can of worms here. So I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, if we don't find, or if we find that they have answered, or someone has answered the environmental issues, but they have submitted a project that does not meet our general plan, and so it would be a prohibited use, we could still say that we're not going to accept their project unless it fits with our general plan. Correct?
Well, That's probably a legal question because, I mean, they would be putting an application in for a general plan amendment at the same time, right? If I understand it correctly. And so...
Well, didn't they do that when they submitted the plan?
Yep.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
So if you were to reject the proposal, what you'd be rejecting would be the project and the general plan and specific plan that would go along with that project. You would then have the ability at a future date to look at a different specific plan, a different general plan, and a project that would then be in compliance with excuse me, whatever that revised general plan and specific plan would be. And if that was acceptable to the council, then at that point you could certify the EIR and approve the specific plan and general plan amendments based on that revised project.
And that wouldn't be felt to be not allowing their plan to be looked at or slowing it down by doing it in that method, since we've already accepted their plan, their proposed plan, even though it didn't meet our general plan guidelines?
You will need to take action on the submitted plan of the applicant before you can proceed to look at any other plans. And again, of course, without prejudging it, I mean, your role is to move ahead and to make a decision on the application, either accepting, modifying, or rejecting as soon as you feasibly can after environmental review is completed. Depending on what action the council takes, you will then either have the option of proceeding with a modified plan, with a new plan. Again, it's difficult to predict because at this point it's unknown what the council is going to do exactly with that specific plan as submitted.
Thank you.
No.
Yeah, you know, and you know, just for me, you know, where I stand, I mean, you know, to me, the final EIR that I would even consider approving, we are going to vet what the project is going to be with the community first. So by the time that final project, whatever it is, it will reflect, or the EIR will respond to all of the environmental issues that are part of that plan that hopefully the majority of the community supports. And so, you know, here, you know, we have these, you know, these plans that are out there right now, but those aren't the ones that are going to be, those aren't the ones that are going to go before the voters. There's going to be a plan that eventually will be, you know, one that is sustainable, one that has been, you know, getting information from whatever, you know, means that we have planned, like the survey. And so, again, I mean, I think whatever that final EIR is going to be, it's going to be based upon the community's plan, not what we have right now. So, you know, and then after that, you know, if we decertify it, then it goes before the voters, and then the voters decide.
Motion to extend the meeting 15 minutes.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All right.
I honestly think you guys have a problem with timing.
Yeah. More ways than one.
How long does it take to call an election? How many days in advance does it take to call an election? And will that affect the timing on the EIR, the certification of it?
Yeah, well, the staff was working on figuring out all those timelines, and so we were aware of all those complexities, that dimension anyway, and so that's being worked on. And so we'll come forward with a proposal for how to confront those things. But in the meantime, we need to make a decision about whether or not to extend the comment period, and if so, for how long. And then we need to do it in a way which is, formally correct, and I understand that we need another meeting in which to do that, but we can indicate our preferences this evening. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Mayor, that's correct. The issue tonight is on the written comment, and it's not on the action agenda. So the council under the Brown Act wouldn't be able to make a final decision tonight. It could certainly, as it's been doing, discuss the issue and indicate its preference. What would happen would be the matter would be put on the agenda at the next meeting, November the 18th, for the council to take action and to provide further opportunity for public comment from anyone who wished to address the issue before the council made its final decision.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question for staff.
Sure.
So when we approved the extra funding for Terry, I forgot his last name.
Rivas Plata.
Rivas Plata, to work with the OSEC. We also agreed to have his services be applied to the Citizens Committee, and we approved for him to look at their comments, and he was supposed to, at least the guidelines that we had given was that he would look at those comments and perhaps restructure them so that they were appropriate for a draft EIR. But we didn't know the significance of the volume of information. So Terry's I don't know what, I guess maybe his guidelines now have changed, and so if you could talk about that change.
I can read it to you.
Okay.
Okay. So his scope of work is that he will provide marginal notes regarding whether the comment focuses on the EIR and not simply the project, is pertinent to the project, and is clearly written. He adds that although we know that the discussion with the City Council included our potentially rewriting the comments, we do not propose to do so, nor do we propose to undertake any independent research related to the comments. We will provide objective assistance to the committees as to the form of their comments, not their subjective content. And he budgeted 12 hours of his firm's time, 2 of his, and then 10 of an associate for each committee. So 24 hours altogether, 12 for each committee.
Okay. And then so and he feels that once he gets that information that he could do it in several days, so that, and he would, I guess, jump on it, fairly quickly.
That's my understanding. He wrote me an email today indicating that he would have comments back within three working days from the time that he received the comments from the committees.
Okay. All right.
So, what's your pleasure?
Well, I think we should support our committees as best we can and give them as much time as we can possibly squeak out of the process. And so I would like to bring it back at our next meeting and make that decision on what kind of time frame.
I agree with that. Yeah.
So you want to you leave the number of days open, or is that what you're thinking now, or would you want to give some advice on that, or what's your thinking?
Well, I personally have great difficulty setting a time frame that would put all our citizens' holidays in jeopardy. And by that, I mean putting a deadline before those holidays appear. Because I think that that is unfair. I know that we're looking at, ways to extend the time so that we get the best product, but I think that setting a deadline that is before the holidays would be grossly unfair to our citizens that are working so diligently. And while we can't make any specific recommendations right now, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, you want to support the folks that are doing the work. And, because the stuff that they're doing is, they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for us right now. And, of course, maybe the plans that are out there right now won't be the final plan that's before us, but a lot of those things that you're all studying will be relevant to whatever that final plan is. We also have, that legal issue that I think we need to have a little bit more discussion amongst ourselves, because we are looking at, going beyond a certain time frame that, as far as we know, no other city has gone. And so...
sounds like Star Trek.
Yeah, and so, we have to, you want to find that balance between, giving you guys enough time and making sure that we don't put ourselves in legal hot water, too. And so, I just hope that you respect that, that we are really looking at it and, try and do the best, not only, be right by you guys, but also, protecting the city, too.
So when are we going to discuss the time?
Yeah, right.
Because I'm not hearing anything other than the extended time, and is what's the proposal? Because really is what it is okay, certainly we want to support our committees, and our citizens committee, I don't think really that's ever been the question. The question is, we know that at some point we got to end it, regardless whether they're finished or not. We're going to have to, and the onus is on us. So it's kind of a crapshoot.
Well, we could
rolling out the time, with the attorney,
we could do something like, say perhaps extend it an additional 30 days and work hard to try and wrap it up if it's possible. But and see if we need to address it at another time if that's not appropriate.
I think that 30 days would help the committee, whether it puts a strain on the time frame or not. I think any time at all would be a help, but I just think that's wrong. Just think it's wrong.
But we also know of potential legal challenges that could be before us too, and we don't want to put the city in a bad spot either.
I understand that. I think
since you are going to not formally vote on the extension until the 18th, and our last meeting is the 19th, we need a firm idea today whether you are extending at all. That's the basic thing. We need to know that, because we are not going to be finished even on the 19th as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is important to know that you are definitely going to not be intimidated at this point but giving us definitely the idea that we're going to have an extension, and then the time you decide next. But we need to know now that you're going to extend.
I think that from what I hear from my colleagues, there's a sentiment to extend, for sure 30 days. and maybe more. And so my sense is that I'm testing you out now. Give me feedback. My sense is that the 30-day extension is something that you could get a lot of support for from the council. Maybe if the final further research that's involved, such as, are there any precedents, are there any real legal downsides to this that we really ought to know about, maybe we can consider, going to 60, which would, be into January. But we need to have kind of a legal basis for that, and we want our attorney to be able to say, okay, these are the findings by which we could do our best to, justify that, make it legally defensible, let's say. So anyway, that's my sense of the conversation. Have I got it? Or?
I would agree, yes.
As much as we can agree at this point without it being an agenda, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Let's plan for 30 then, given feedback from the attorney on whether you can go another 30 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. The direction clear, Mr. Attorney?
It is.
Okay. Should we make a motion, or we just leave it at that?
Can't.
No. No motion, since this was on for discussion of the written communication. Yes, thanks.
Okay, that's what I thought you'd say, just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so you heard the resolution? Yeah. Okay. We have just a couple other things that will go in about a couple of seconds. More oral communications, yeah. We have a letter from the Human Rights Campaign, which just gives us our score, or proposed score. We have a letter from the Mayors Against Illegal Guns, and then they've sent us a book, which I'm happy to share with all my colleagues, Reducing Gun Violence in America. Yes. I'll have Sherry distribute it among the council. Then we've had a distribution of City Selection Committee coming up in December, and there are lots of open spots, and we can agendize that for next time and talk about it, but just want to make sure everybody pays attention to that, because there are a lot of interesting opportunities there. Mm-hmm. And then we had all kinds of emails, which are sort of under written communications on the skate park, on pool hours, on support of the charrette, Crocker Park, and we've had a couple of communications also on the issue we just resolved as much as we could this evening, especially from former Mayor Clara Johnson. And so now we move, unless there are any other points to be made, to oral communications. Michelle.
Michelle Salmon, Brisbane resident. I'll make this short because I want to go home as badly as you do. I really think that tonight was an eye-opener in many ways about the whole process of the draft EIR, the EIR, the project, the certification, etc., and the amount of time it takes to call for an election, and a lot of other things. And I am really concerned that we do not have a good timeline on this, and a good scenario for rights of refusal should this not be acceptable to us. And I am gravely concerned about that, way more than I already was when I called you all today. And I think that you really need to sit down and get some honest answers and some honest timelines about how it really works from step A to step Z, so that we don't get screwed. Because right now I'm looking like we're going to get screwed. So please, please, sit down and get the truth, the real timeline from the best experts that you can find, and not just our internal ones. Because I am now really, really concerned. Because we've been all like, oh, we can just ask for more time, we can do more time, and apparently that is not the case. So I hope all of your eyes were really open tonight by some of the things that your new city attorney said to you. about this process and the timelines involved. So I think you need to talk to your consultants directly and find out what the real situation is. Thank you. And thank you for all your indulgence tonight and being able to hear what we had to say. Thank you.
Thank everybody for contributing, and we're here to do the best we can. Any other oral communications? Seeing no other requests, we will adjourn in memory of Billy Kosick, right? Kosick. 91 years old. Long-time resident. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
We got it. Thank you.